Hello friends, so we are at week 4 in our Creative Lent series, and tonight I'm going to be showing you how to use napkins or serviettes, as we say in the UK, in your journaling. So I've got this napkin of an owl, which I thought fitted in really nicely with today's words from Jesus, which is watch and pray. So what you want to do is to peel off the extra layers from your napkin or serviette, and I'm just using a tiny bit of sellotape at one end and pulling gently, and that will allow me to remove the white layers of the napkin. This is very important because if you don't remove the layers, then you will have, it will peel off basically. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tear around the image of the owl, and I'm just going to use my hands, and I've doubled the serviette because that gives me more control in tearing it. You could also use a wet paintbrush and just draw along the bits of the serviettes you want to use. If you don't have to have an owl serviette. I'm using this because I had it in my stash. I'm just going to but you can use any other patterned napkins that you have lying about to do this. Sometimes, as luck would have it, you find one that represents the verse you're looking at, but most times you don't, so just use any kind of pattern serviette. So I've got my owl sitting nicely. I'm going to also tear the end of this. I've just realized that I hadn't turned the camera on, and I was chatting away nicely to myself about what we're doing. So what I've done is I'm using some book pages as a base for my work today. It is not up. This is not necessary. This is optional. You can just go ahead and put the napkin on. And what I also did was remove the extra layers, the white bits off this napkin or serviette. And I'm using an owl because for me it made me think about our words for today, which is watch and pray. So I removed all the white layers, the 2 layers of it, and then I tore around the image that I want. So you can do that with any paper napkin, any sort of floral pattern that you have, and just simply you can tear around the image that you want to use. And I also have some paints that we're going to be using later just to blend everything in. And I'm using matte gel medium to adhere my pages on. You can use PVA glue thinned with a little bit of water. So that's what we've missed. So I'm going to continue and hope that I am recording. I think I will cry if it doesn't record. And I did say too that always protect your page underneath. So I've got some scrap paper on the page that I'm working on. And I'm also being more generous with the medium than I normally would because the pages of this book are a little bit thick. So I'm putting it on and just smoothing it completely. I find that this size brush is a lot better to when I'm working with this big area. So making sure it's all nicely adhered. Get rid of any bubbles because they will come back to bite you later. Make sure I'm in frame. And I have an extra bit for the middle here I'm going to put on. So I can see that I didn't have some glue, so I'm just using my finger to press it in. And I will need to let this dry. And I will use my heat gun to speed up the process. Okay, oops. As I said before, it's not necessary to put book pages down. You can simply go directly onto the page with your paper napkin. And you can use, like tissue paper that use for gift wrapping. You can get some nice patterned ones nowadays, and you can use that. Okay. All right. So I'm now going to apply my serviette. I know I want it in this corner here, so I'll add a little bit more of this. Like this. It doesn't matter, and then gently smooth it. You don't want to be too rough because the tissue, once it's wet, it's a bit more fragile. And I've got some overhang here. I'm not worried about that. Once it's dry, I'll just tear that off. I'm going gently. It's better to let to dry before you go on top, but I'm impatient, so I'm doing this. And plus it's late and I need to go to bed. So I'm going to put this up in the corner here. All right. And just gently move it down and put a little bit more at the top. Always start from the inside, middle, working your way to outward. And I really do hope you can see this. Why does it feel like it's not in frame? It's far away. I've been playing around with the camera angle, trying to get the best angle. So I do apologize if it's not in frame. All right, so I'm happy with that. So I'm going to pause the video and use my heat gun, which is very loud, and dry this. Okay, so it's dried enough for me to work on. So now I'm going to do some stenciling, and I'm going to use structure gel to do that. You don't have to do this. You can use paints as well, or gesso, thick gesso, white gesso, to create a stenciling effect. But this again is about adding texture onto the page. So let's bring it closer so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, it's quite faint, but we're going to be adding color to that in a bit, so I'm not worried about that. Let's do here. Can you see this? Yes. And I'm not really using a lot. I'm being not very generous with it. And I'm gonna put some here. Okay. I might put a little bit just here. All right. Get rid of the excess. And I'll wipe my stencil with the leftover tissue paper. And then I'll clean it later because this will dry very hard and I do not want to spoil the stencil. I'll also wipe this off. Right, so let me just show you. Just here, you can see it's really faint. And that will need to dry completely before we can do anything else, before we can add the paints to it. So let me dry this and come back. Okay, so it's a little bit dry, but I'm gonna keep going. It's dry to the touch, so it's okay. I'm going to just add some gesso to the page. You can use white paint as well. Gesso is a primer, so it acts as a base, and it just makes your paint behave differently than if you didn't have gesso. But it's not not an absolute must. If you are going to be working with stuff like that, mixed media, I would recommend getting some gesso. Trying to stay away from the area where I have the structure paste. Add some on the sides here. Clear gesso. If you don't want what you're doing to be covered and you want to gesso, then you use clear gesso rather than white. Oops, got some on my owl. Right, okay. Actually, I'm going to put, I really should have bought the clear gesso. The structure is still there, the structured piece. The texture, I suppose, rather, is still there. So kind of covering because I want the paint to behave in a particular way. And I'm going to be adding water to the page, so I want it to be protected. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to use the colors to try to blend in our napkin so it doesn't look like there's something there and there's something there. That's the plan. We will see how we get on with that. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add some water to sections of my page where I have the structure gel, where the stencil I did, and then go in with some paint. I'm just going to lay down a little bit of paint on a bit of paper. Oops, that was a rude paint. I'm just going to put all the colors, just a tiny amount of each. Oops, that one came out a lot. And some white. So I've just got some paints on a bit of paper, and then I'm going to, actually what I'm going to do is, I don't want too much water to get on my napkin, so I'm just going to cover my little owl. Cover my owl. And cover this section here as well. And I'm going to go ahead and wet my brush. I'm using a soft brush. Okay. I'm not going to be putting lots of water. I hope that my spray works. So sometimes it's kind of falling. I'm going to start with a bit of brown and take a bit of white and just go. So you can see it's how it's, well, I hope you can see that it's, let me bring this closer to you. Oh my goodness. Where is it looking? Ah, you can see it's in some water. With the water, it's kind of reacting differently. So I'm just going and dragging that water down. I mean, dragging the paint down, using the water to help it go down. Okay, and I'm going to come over here and spray. My spray is failing me. It's kind of coming out in blobs. And I'm going to go in with another color and some white, just mixing it up a bit. And allowing the water just to really you need a good spray, so the water can move in the way you want it to. You don't want it you almost want it to move of its own accord, you know. I need lots more water. So I'm going to try to tilt. Oh, why are you not spraying properly? Oh, there we go. Now you're spraying. And as you can see, it's, well, I hope you can see it's kind of running down. So I'm just going to let it run down wherever it wants to run down. And I'm just going to move it about the brush and allow it to move where it wants to move. I hope you can see that. I'm gonna add some more water because I want a little bit more movement. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna come in with some red I'm just going to put it different places, and I might spray it again. Just take bits of that red, or the burnt sienna rather. And I might just put some more water. But just move it about. And add some more water. I'm probably using the wrong brush here. So I want to give some highlights. So I'm going to go in, let's see, where am I? Can you see? I'm going to go in between and just take that burnt sienna across. Let's move this because it's going to get stuck. I don't want that to happen. Okay, so you can sort of see that the color is not to my preferred liking, but that's okay because I can fix it. I don't want it to be too dark. So I'm going to come in with some brown just on the edges here where the owl is. The best thing to do is to let the colors dry in between, but like I said, I'm impatient and I really do want to go to bed. So I'm not following my own instructions. So let the different colors dry in between, adding water and adding color. Art is subjective, so really it's all up to the artists how they want to engage with their work. So that's my excuse for not following my own rules. The darker brown. Okay. I'm going to give that a little bit of a dry. And then I'm going to play with it a little bit more and see what I can do. Because although I'm talking about picking up the colors of the owl, I don't want it, the owl is quite dark and I don't want the page to be too dark. Because I want to be able to write in this. So I'm going to give this a quick dry. Okay, so we're continuing. And I'm going to try to pick up some of the red from that, from the napkin. Okay, just wiping my brush. I'm just going to really do where the structured gel is. And I'm just dabbing the tiny bits of red paint here, really. So it's mimicking, hopefully, what we have over here. And then I'm going to come down in the corner here and do the same thing. Now you could do this using watercolor paints, just have a different effect. And if you are going to be putting water into the page, having that book page underneath really does make a difference. Okay, let's see where we are. Some here as well. So nothing too much, not too much paint, just light touches I'm using basically. And so I think it's kind of drawing all of that together. And I will come here with the dark brown. Probably could have used a black. This brown is a very, very old brown. I've had it for a while. So I'll put a little bit of red in the brown, in the dark brown. And then I'm going to go in with the brown and just move my brush around random places. So it's a kind of, I'm getting a kind of browny red effect. I will put a picture up so you can see this in all its glory once it's all done. My brush is dry and that's deliberate. It was wet, but I didn't add any more water to it. So I'm just trying to do some random movement across the page to kind of bring everything together. And even if I'm going across the reds, that's okay. All right, so let's just see what we have here. So you can see the detail here and the bringing together of the browns across right next to Mr. Owl. Okay, they say less is more, so I'm going to stop. I'm going to create a space in here for writing, so I'm just going to go in with white paint. I'm going to add a little bit of the burnt sienna to it, but I want it to be wet, so it's kind of a bit pinky. Okay, let's come in with the brown. You know what they say, less is more, and don't mess with what you do. Okay, let me clean my brush. I'm coming with just the white paint. and just try to create a writing space in between here. Create some white spaces. That sounds weird. Creating white spaces. That's okay. So I'm just lightly running the brush along. And I've got this space in the middle now, and that's fine. And I'm going to quit while I am ahead. Some white space up here. Okay. Yep. Okay. So I think we're done. Let's see. So we have Mr. Owl here. I think you've seen it in reverse because of the way I have the camera. But hopefully you can see all the detail, and I will upload a photo so that you can see it properly in all its splendor. So do join us on Zoom if you can. If you would like to get information on how to join us on Zoom, send me a message, and I can get that Zoom link to you, and you can join our happy bunch as we continue in our creative Lent. All right, so take care and God bless, and enjoy the rest of your day or evening or whatever it is you're up to. All right, bye-bye.